Hi friends, welcome back to my channel. My name is Emily if you're new here. Today's video is an exciting video. I'll be going through my favourite reads of 2023. So I'll be going through my top 23 favourites of 2023. So I have accumulated the list. I'll be going from number 23 to number 1. So by all means, all of these books on this list are definitely favourite. They are all 4.5 to 5-star reads, infinity reads, like absolutely obsessed with all of these books that I have read this year. So I'm just gonna get straight into it. I did put majority of the books on this list. So there are some books that are a part of series, like maybe the second or the third book in a series, but I only put one book for each series because there are multiple favourites for many series that I have read this year, but I just nailed it down to one book, so I have other room to put my other favorites. So I'm just gonna get straight into it. I do have the list on my iPad, but I also will be going through some of the physical books that I own, and then the rest were either audiobooks or ebooks. So let's just start off with the first book. So the first book on this list, number 23, is Chasm by Stacey McEwen. This was a 4.5-star read for me this year. I really enjoyed it. I was lucky enough to receive an ARC from Angry Robot. I really enjoyed the character development and growth between Ryan and Dawson, especially Dawson in the second installment of this series. It is going to be a trilogy, the Glacian trilogy, but I really enjoyed the character development that Dawson achieved in the second book, and I also liked her opening up and becoming more vulnerable towards Ryan. I felt like that was a really good dynamic, as well as the friendships and the obstacles that they had to face in book 2. So number 22 is The Haunting of Hill House by Shirley Jackson. I really enjoyed this read this year. I gave it a 4.5 as well. It was just very atmospheric and unsettling. I really enjoyed the unhinged characters that were portrayed in this story. I really liked Eleanor as our main character. I just found Hill House to be very eerie. It gave me the gothic horror vibes that I wanted with reading this story. Number 21 on the list is This Woven Kingdom by Tahira Murphy. I ended up giving this a 5 stars. I really enjoyed this book. This is going to be a fantastic series. I have already read the first 2 books in the series. This Twisted Glory is book 3 that is coming out in March, I'm pretty sure, and I am so astoundingly excited for that release. I just really like Alizé as our main character. We have jinns in this world. It is the Parisian mythology. It is just very interesting, and I really did enjoy my time reading this. It was a very quick read, so I highly recommend if you're wanting to pick up a fantasy novel, YA in particular, this is a great series to start with. So number 20 on the list is The Stolen Heir by Holly Black. I gave this one another 5 stars. From here on out, they're all 5-star reads pretty much, but this book was so much fun. We follow Oak and Siren, and basically it's all in Siren's POV. So it is 9 years after the events of the Queen of Nothing from the Folk of the Air series. So 9 years later, Oak is, I think, 17, turning 18 soon, and Siren is the same age, and we just follow them. There is also the human lands that are as part of this story, because Siren ends up being in the human lands. Oak with his challenges in trying to please his father as well as everyone else around him. I just really loved the first book, and I cannot wait for the second book to come out next year. So number 19 on the list is Red Rising by Pierce Brown. I thought this was phenomenal. I absolutely adored Pierce Brown's writing and the characters, Darrow as our main character. So this was a very interesting read. I really enjoyed it. This is a sci-fi. I buddy read this with Raimi from Raimi Reads. We had a really good time buddy reading this book. It was just so many emotions throughout the whole story. You were angry for Darrow, you were sad for Darrow, the challenges that he faced when he found out that there was just so much more just to being a red. So him becoming a gold, and then obviously taking part in the games was just like a whole other thing. But I really enjoyed it, and I cannot wait to read Golden Sun next year. So number 18 on the list is Blood Promise by Rochelle Mead. This is book 4 in the Vampire Academy series. I fully annotated this. I had the best time reading this. I just really love Rose as our main character. I loved the character development and growth as well in book 4 with Rose. She really just grew up super quickly. She's only 17, but she just was so much more mature in book 4, I found. But then Dimitri and the things that happened, I was gasping, I was crying, I was like, what is going on? It was a lot, honestly. The ending, I don't know why I haven't picked up book 5 yet. I'm just savoring the last 2 books of the series because I don't want it to end, but I definitely want to pick up book 5 really soon. I just love the characters in this series. I actually really enjoyed this show adaptation on Stan. It was a really good time. Like, I'm really sad that they cancelled it after 1 season, but this book, chef's kiss, honestly. Could not fault it. Number 17 on the list is The Hobbit by J.R.R. Tolkien. I really, really enjoyed the story of The Hobbit. I just felt like it was a really beautiful, enchanting story, and I listened to this by audio, and the narrator was phenomenal with the voice acting of all the characters in the story. I just really loved it, especially Gollum being in The Hobbit. I just really like Gollum as a character, even though he is so unhinged, but I love it. I really do. So I have nothing to fault about The Hobbit. I thought it was a fantastic read, and you know, getting the insight into the Lord of the Rings series. I maybe one day pick up the entirety of J.R.R. Tolkien's work, but The Hobbit was great to start with and to really understand and learn his writing style, because it is definitely unique, but it was a phenomenal read. Number 17 on the list is All the Dangerous Things by Stacey Willingham. This was a thriller about a lady's son who goes missing in the middle of the night and is never seen for a year, and she hasn't slept in 365 days pretty much, like has terrible insomnia, only sleeps maybe half an hour per day because she just cannot bring herself to go to sleep, and she's so unhinged and unlikable as the main character. You do kind of sympathize with her though, with the way that her son went missing, but it was just a whirlwind of emotions, and the plot twist at the end I did not see coming whatsoever. I thought it was so well done, and I really enjoy Stacey Willingham's writing style and her writing itself, so I just thought it was fantastic, and it was a great thriller, very fast paced. So number 15 on this list is Circe by Madeline Miller. I entirely annotated this book as well. When I first started reading this, the first maybe 10 pages, I was like, wow, this is something. I had to annotate the whole entire thing. Like, let me just find it when I first... So I got pretty much 19 pages into Circe before I realised that I had to annotate this book, because the last line on page 19 was, the thought was this, that all my life had been murk and depths, but I was not a part of that dark water. I was a creature within it. And that writing and the descriptiveness, I just was so drawn into it. I had to annotate the whole entire book. It was so beautifully written. I haven't picked up anything else by Madeline Miller, but I don't know why I haven't, because this was a phenomenal read, and I just really enjoyed Circe as a character. I really sympathized with Circe. She went through a lot of freaking shit, and I just could not deal with it. But then towards the end, I'm really glad that it ended the way it did. So I love this. Number 14 on this list is The Bell Jar by Sylvia Plath. This was so heartbreaking and heart-wrenching, and it was just an eye-opening to the world of the 1950s, how women were treated in the 1950s. There was a whole other perspective on life then, and I was just blown away by the way that Sylvia Plath wrote this book. It was heartbreaking. Esther Greenwood had a very hard life, and she was only so young, and she went through so much, and mentally she was just so broken, and it hurt me so much to read, but I loved it. I annotated this completely as well. There was just so much depth to this book, and Sylvia Plath is no longer with us, but Esther Greenwood and Sylvia Plath definitely were the same person. It was pretty much confirmed that Sylvia wrote herself in this book, but obviously just changed some features about Esther Greenwood. But it was heartbreaking, and we just basically see Esther Greenwood go through and her life dealing with rejection and depression, and just, you know, losing connection with her friends. It was a lot, but I highly recommend it. Everyone needs to read this once in their life. Like, it was phenomenal, and I will recommend this for the rest of my life. I feel like it is a book that everyone should read. So number 13 on this list was It by Stephen King. Oh my goodness, I recently just finished reading this and it was so well done. I mean, there are some very explicit things that happened towards the end of this book that were it was just grotesque and disgusting. But overall, the 1,000 other pages that were in this book, there was just so much to uncover throughout the entirety of it. All I can say is I pretty much listened to majority of this book by audio, and the narrator of this book was outstanding, did a phenomenal job with every single character. I was so connected to the Losers Club. I really enjoyed both when they were children and when they were adults. It was, I don't even have words to describe this. We had to do a full in-depth review because I have so many notes on this book, but I have no words to describe how unsettling this book was. Pennywise the clown, terrifying. 100% terrifying, right? Henry Bowers, even more terrifying. That's all I have to say. He is my worst nightmare, and I just can't get over that particular character in any such story that I have ever read in my life. Number 12 on this list is The Serpent in the Wings of Night by Carissa Broadbent. I literally fell in love with Oriah and Rain's story, and the tournaments that occurred in this series, I thought it was fantastic. The first book particularly, the tournaments that happened, I felt like they were really well written, and I just had the best time getting to know them as characters. I just really loved Rain as a character. I thought he was very understanding to Oriah, and I just really enjoyed their dynamic. So I was so happy that I read this series, or this duology in particular of the Nyaxia series. So I just had the best time reading it. So number 11 on this list is Finlay Donovan Knocks 'Em Dead. This was so much fun. The Finlay Donovan series is just so much fun, and you know, you just look at a single mum who has just, her whole world has literally turned upside down. She's made $65,000 from something that she didn't even has as a job. Like, she's not a hit woman, but then has to like find herself and look after her kids, whereas working with her nanny Vero was hilarious, and then working together, it was just so funny. The things that they did together, I was cackling, but also like on the edge of my seat because so many things were happening at once, and it was just so good. I highly recommend the series. It was so good, and I cannot wait for Finlay Donovan Rolls the Dice that comes out next March. It's going to be hopefully a really fun time again too. Number 10 on the list is How to Sell a Haunted House by Grady Hendrix. This one was very unsettling in regards to puppets. Pupkin lives in my head rent free, but I am extremely terrified of puppets, especially porcelain puppets. I had nightmares as a child about puppets. I thought that one blinked at me when I was like 7 or 8 years old, and I made my mom chuck every single one that we had in our room out because it was traumatizing. But Pupkin in How to Sell a Haunted House was terrifying. I did not realize how terrifying puppets could be. But also I did appreciate the sibling dynamic between the main characters after losing their parents in a terrible accident. I just really had the best time reading this book, and it's definitely my favorite Grady Hendrix book that I have read thus far, so I highly recommend it. Number 9 on the list is Yellowface by R.F. Kuang. This was a phenomenal read again. I have nothing to fault about this book. Obviously, it's not to everyone's cup of tea. Basically, Yellowface entails a woman by the name of June, and she steals her friend's manuscript who died suddenly. And she steals the manuscript from a person of color, whereas June is not a person of color. There is like a whole conversation about racism, the publishing industry, and all of the issues that occur within the publishing industry. Especially, it is so eye-opening now, particularly reading this book this year, and all the drama that has been happening around BIPOC authors in the community of the book community. Like, it is just so unnerving what people have been doing to BIPOC authors. It's honestly disgusting. So reading this book this year has really opened my eyes into bringing light to these issues. but I had a really good time reading Yellowface. It was a very quick read. I was lucky enough to receive an art from NetGalley of Yellowface. I just had the best time reading it, and it was very eye-opening. And I am actually seeing RF Kuang in March of next year in Sydney, and I'm so excited. It is a whole talk on her Yellowface tour, so I cannot wait to go to that. Number 8 on this list is going to be the Death Note manga series. I read majority of this manga series this year, and I'm absolutely obsessed. I read 4 black editions this year. Have nothing to fault about the series, even though Light is absolutely infuriating as a character, but I was so gripped on the story. I am actually getting a Ryuk tattoo in Japan in February. That's how obsessed I am with this series. Like, I cannot wait to finally finish this series off, even though I don't want to finish it off, because this is a phenomenal manga series. There is a lot of dialogue. You get a lot about each character. It was just so much fun. So much fun, so unnerving, so thrilling. I just am obsessed with this series. So number 7 on this list is House of Earth and Blood by Sarah J. Maas. This is the first book in the Crescent City series. I read both of these books this year, and I am absolutely obsessed with the Crescent City series. I cannot wait for House of Flame and Shadow to be released in January. This is a phenomenal urban fantasy series. There is a lot of world building in the first book, but I really enjoyed the first book over the second book. They are both equally 5-star reads for me, but the second book was a lot slower than I would have liked, but this book was so action-packed. Yes, there was a lot of info dumping with the world building, but it was totally worth it. First 200 pages, and then the rest was like you're on the edge of your seat. Like, I was absolutely obsessed. I love Bryce Quinlan as a character. So Bryce Quinlan is the queen of main characters. I love her attitude. I love her fieriness. I just love her as a main character. And I also really enjoyed Hunt and them getting to know each other in this book. It was just a really good time, and I'm obsessed. So number 6 on this list is A Court of Silver Flames by Sarah J. Maas again. This book has a chokehold on me. I am a Nesta and Cassian stan. You cannot tell me otherwise. This book is my favorite book in the whole series. I did annotate it as well. I just had the most memorable time reading this book and getting Nesta's redemption arc. She wasn't even needed a redemption arc, but just her really growing as a character, her relationship with Gwen and Emery, and my heart, I still think about it and I'm like, oh my gosh. They have the most beautiful relationship, friendship, sisterhood vibes. I just ate it up. And then yes, you obviously have Cassian, but the Valkyries will live in my head rent free for the rest of my life. I cannot fault this book. It is honestly my favorite book in the whole entire series. The next book on this list, which is number 5, is Jade Legacy by Fonda Lee. This is the 3rd book in the Greenbone Saga series, and this book made me cry. It made me kick my feet. It made me rip my hair out. So many emotions, so many time jumps in the 3rd book. Absolutely heartbreaking, but heartwarming, and it just left off the series in just such a well done way. Like, I'm very happy with how the series ended. So it was just like phenomenal how much growth Hilo had from the first 2 books. Like, you just see the growth spike, and as well as that, Andon and Shay and just everyone else a part of that family, the Cole family, and even the Mountain Clan themselves. Like, I'm just really happy with what happened in the 3rd book. So it is one of my favorites of the year. I just will never stop thinking about those characters. I had the best time reading this series. I also buddy read this series with Daphne's book club. It was just a really good time. Also heartbreaking time, but a really good time. So we're getting really closer now to my top 4 favorites of the year, and I'm really scared, but number 4, sitting at number 4, is Bunny Maimuna Award. I have no words for this book besides being in an absolute fever dream. Like, fever dream state, no idea what's going on. I still don't know really what happened, but I do like kind of got some understanding from Reddit. But wow, this book, Mona Award, is a genius. Her writing genius. Like, I can't even explain to you how I felt when I was reading this book at the time. The bunnies, Samantha. That's all I have to say. Now, the top 3. This was a really hard, tough decision for me because these are my favorite books of all time. But I had to nail it down to really, what do I think about 24/7? So sitting at number 3 is A Good Girl's Guide to Murder. This book was so good, and I am so glad that Liv from Endless Pages got me onto this series this year. I haven't been able to stop thinking about this book, the way that it ended, the relationships between Pip and Ravi. It was so thrilling. I was at the edge of my seat reading this book. I read it in like 24 hours, not even that. It is just so well done. It is a YA thriller. I cannot get enough of it, and I'm still yet to finish the series off. I still have As Good as Dead to read, which is the last book in the series, but this first book in particular, I have absolutely no faults with this book. It is my top 3 of the year, obviously, but phenomenal read. Okay, sitting at number 2, Daisy Jones and the Six by Taylor Jenkins Reid. This book has lived in my head rent-free ever since I read it back in January. I think I read this book. No, February. I read it in February because I got it around my birthday. And this book has literally changed my life. I am not even exaggerating when I say that. This book has opened my eyes, and the band and just like the characters in this story. I literally, my heart ached for Daisy. It ached for Camilla. I have just so many thoughts. I cannot wait to go back and fully annotate this book because I was just entirely in the moment reading this book. And Daisy Jones and the Six has absolutely changed my life, especially shout out to the show adaptation, the band, the actual music that has been released has changed my life for 2023. It was my number 1 album on Spotify Wrapped. That is saying something with how obsessed I am with Daisy Jones and the Six. I will never forget about this book, and I cannot wait to reread it. So, the moment we've all been waiting for, my absolute favorite read of the year, and I don't think it would be surprising to many of you because I talk about this book on my YouTube channel a lot, but sitting at number 1 for 2023 is The 7 Year Slip by Ashley Poston. This is an infinity star read for me. I have not been able to stop thinking about these characters since I read it back in August. I am genuinely so obsessed, and I'm so happy that I read this book because it has changed my life. I have never felt so strongly about a relationship, a book couple in my life. Ewan and Clementine are my ride or dies, and this book is just so heartwarming, and I bawled my eyes out reading this book multiple times, and I have never felt this way about any other book in my life, and I would just never ever get over it. I cannot wait to go back and fully annotate this as well. I have never felt so emotionally attached to a book ever, not even with fantasy series that I absolutely would die to reread again, but this book for me did it. This is my favorite book of 2023, and I have no regrets in choosing this as my number 1. I love it so much. So that concludes my 23 favorite books in 2023. Thank you guys so much for watching day 11 of Bookmas. Please don't forget to like, comment and subscribe. It really helps my channel grow, and I'll see you on my next one. Bye!